Seth Rollins rushed to hospital after collapse. Roman Reigns reacts in shock in a dramatic turn of events. WWE superstar Seth Rollins collapses in California after a reported drug overdose, sending shockwaves through the wrestling world. Roman Reigns immediately rushes to the hospital, breaking his silence on Rollins' ongoing knee injury and what this could mean for his future in WWE. This emotional story uncovers the real impact of Seth Rollins' injury, the behind-the-scenes reaction from Roman Reigns, and what could be next for both superstars heading into SummerSlam and beyond. What if I told you that just days before one of WWE's biggest pay-per-view events, the architect of modern wrestling, the man known as Seth Rollins, was found unconscious in a California hotel room? What if I told you that behind the smiles, the championship glory, and the high-octane entrances, Seth was battling a silent storm that no one in the locker room could see? And what if the only person to drop everything and rush to his side was the one man he hasn't spoken to in nearly a year, Roman Reigns? This isn't just a health scare. This is a moment that has frozen the entire wrestling world. Seth Rollins, former world champion, father, husband, leader, was rushed to the emergency room after suffering what sources now describe as a sudden collapse linked to an alleged prescription overdose. The news hit like a thunderclap. But what followed was even more shocking. Roman Reigns, silent for months and embroiled in his own war within the bloodline, was spotted arriving at the hospital within the hour. The man known as the Tribal Chief had broken his silence. And his reaction? It wasn't rage. It wasn't pride. It was grief. According to medical reports leaked by an anonymous hospital aide, Seth was found face down in a private suite at the Waldorf Beverly Hills just after midnight. Paramedics responded within minutes. Empty prescription bottles were recovered at the scene. And while there's been no official statement from WWE, what we do know is this: Seth had been hiding pain, real, relentless, unbearable pain, ever since he injured his knee on live television. Doctors had warned him weeks ago, any further strain, and his career could end in one wrong move. But as always, Rollins chose to push through. Until his body couldn't anymore. Insiders close to the WWE medical team say that the damage to Seth's knee was worse than the company let on. Torn ligaments, deep muscle bruising, cartilage disintegration. He was already working through cortisone shots, pain patches, and limited mobility. But with SummerSlam approaching and Paul Heyman circling like a vulture, Seth refused to step away. He insisted on leading his faction. He insisted on showing strength. Even if it meant hiding the pills he was using just to walk. What makes this moment even more tragic is that no one saw it coming. Not his trainers. Not the writers. Not even Becky Lynch, who had left town for a promotional appearance just hours earlier. According to friends, Seth had been unusually quiet in recent days. Withdrawn. Obsessed with film footage. Rewatching old matches. Replaying interviews. One producer said he noticed Seth watching footage of The Shield, Roman, Dean, and himself, on a loop. It's like he was chasing ghosts, the man said. Trying to remember who he used to be. Then came the 9/11 call. Details remain under tight seal, but one thing is confirmed: Roman Reigns was among the first people notified. And within 45 minutes, he was photographed entering Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, flanked by 2 security guards and visibly distraught. This is the same man who walked away from the WWE spotlight months ago, the same man who had not spoken publicly about Seth Rollins since their last match at WrestleMania. For Roman to reappear now, for this, tells us something deeper than any storyline ever could. Roman Reigns may have been the tribal chief in the ring, but Seth was his brother in real life. Eyewitnesses at the hospital described Roman as stone-faced but shaken. One nurse said she saw him gripping the wall outside the ICU, as if trying to hold himself up. Another said he spoke only once, to ask if Seth was breathing on his own. For a man who has built his career on silence, dominance, and stoicism, that single question revealed everything. What's unfolding now isn't just a medical emergency. It's a reckoning. The Shield, once WWE's most dominant trio, has been shattered by time, betrayal, and now, mortality. Dean Ambrose is gone. Roman Reigns is a ghost of himself. And Seth Rollins? He may be on the verge of losing everything. Doctors have since confirmed that Seth suffered a seizure-like episode, brought on by a mixture of severe pain medication and physical exhaustion. His body, already deteriorating from years of wrestling abuse, simply shut down. He is stable now, but sedated. WWE sources confirm he will not compete at SummerSlam. In fact, he may not return at all this year. A full recovery is estimated at 9 to 12 months. But the emotional damage? That will last far longer. Backstage, WWE is reeling. Producers are rewriting the SummerSlam card. Paul Heyman has reportedly gone silent. Becky Lynch has cancelled all her appearances and remains at Seth's bedside. And Roman? Roman hasn't left the hospital in over 36 hours. And no one expected this reunion. No one expected that Roman would be the one to come forward. But sources close to both men suggest that Roman and Seth had quietly reconnected in recent weeks, privately, cautiously, away from cameras. Their feud may have burned under the lights, but behind the curtain, there was something else. A flicker of what they once were. A bond not even betrayal could fully break. When Roman finally broke his silence late last night, he didn't do it on WWE programming. He didn't do it through a promo. He posted a single photo to his Instagram story. It was a grainy, black and white picture of the Shield, 3 young men, arms raised, fists clenched. The caption was just 2 words, "Still brothers." That post sent the wrestling world into a spiral. Fans flooded social media with messages of support. #GetWellSeth trended globally. Wrestlers, past and present, began posting their own memories, their own regrets. Finn Balor called him the hardest working man in the locker room. Cody Rhodes said, "He always gave us everything. Every night. Even when he shouldn't have." And Triple H? He released an official statement, uncharacteristically personal. "Seth Rollins is a cornerstone of this company. And more importantly, he's family. We stand with him, now and always." But through all the noise, one figure remains disturbingly quiet, Paul Heyman. Just days ago, Heyman was actively mocking Rollins in promos, belittling his injury, questioning his manhood. He called him a limping liability and hinted that his time as a locker room leader was over. But now, with Rollins hospitalized and the entire locker room on edge, Heyman has vanished. No tweets. No appearances. No statements. Some say it's guilt. Others say it's strategy. But those closest to the situation believe it's fear that Roman Reigns, now emotionally exposed, could return not as a storyline champion, but as a man with something to prove. And if that happens, everything changes, because Roman didn't just visit a fallen brother. He walked into that hospital carrying the weight of legacy, of pain, of every moment the Shield ever stood for. And he may leave that hospital ready for war, but for now, Seth Rollins remains unconscious in a dimly lit room at Cedars-Sinai, with machines blinking, and monitors whispering silent prayers. One of wrestling's greatest storytellers lies silent. And Roman Reigns, the man who once stood in opposition, sits nearby. Not as a champion. Not as a rival. But as a brother. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Not now. Not when the WWE Universe needed hope, needed strength, needed leadership, and yet, maybe this is the moment everything changes. Maybe this is the moment Roman Reigns reclaims not just his name, but his soul. Maybe this is the moment we remember that behind the titles, behind the betrayals, behind the storylines, these are men. Fathers. Husbands. Brothers, and tonight, one of them is fighting for his life. Let that sink in, because the road to SummerSlam just became irrelevant. The only match that matters now is the one happening behind hospital doors, where the stakes are real and the pain isn't scripted. This isn't a promo. This is heartbreak. This is brotherhood. This is real. In the hours that followed Seth Rollins' collapse, WWE descended into a kind of quiet chaos. Meetings were held in hushed tones. SummerSlam scripts were torn apart. And somewhere in Stamford, a crisis team was mobilized. Not just to manage public relations, but to handle the very real possibility that one of their most valuable superstars might never walk into a ring again. But while the corporate machine scrambled, one woman remained still. Becky Lynch had just landed in Toronto for a media event when the call came through. The moment she heard the voice on the other end, she dropped her phone to the floor. She didn't ask questions. She didn't wait for her luggage. She boarded the next private jet back to California and cried in silence the entire flight. Those close to her say she arrived at Cedars-Sinai barefoot, having kicked off her heels in the car. Her eyes were red. Her hands trembled. But when she entered Seth's hospital room, she didn't collapse. She sat beside him, held his hand, and whispered something no one else could hear. To the world, Becky Lynch is a warrior. The man. A symbol of grit and defiance. But in that moment, she was just a wife sitting next to the man she loves. Unsure if he would wake up, hospital staff later revealed that Becky refused to leave the room. Nurses brought in a reclining chair, where she stayed curled up in a hoodie, watching over Seth like a sentinel. At times, she wept. At other times, she stared blankly at the machines, her fingers tracing the wires connected to his arm. Once, she was seen clutching his wedding ring like a lifeline, and when Roman Reigns quietly entered the room again the following morning, Becky didn't flinch. She looked at him. He looked at her. And without words, they nodded. Because whatever had happened in the past, whatever rivalries, betrayals, backstage politics, none of it mattered now. What mattered was that Seth Rollins, the man who had carried WWE on his back for nearly a decade, was now lying still and broken. Backstage sources say that Becky is refusing all press inquiries. WWE has assigned a 24-hour liaison to manage communication on her behalf. But even in her silence, her pain speaks volumes. One unnamed official described her mood as a storm wrapped in glass. Devastated, yes, but ready to shatter anyone who tries to exploit this moment. And that brings us to the man many believe crossed a line too far, Paul Heyman. For months, Heyman has built a story around Seth Rollins' physical vulnerability. His faction ridiculed the limp. Bronson Reed, acting under Heyman's orders, had attacked Rollins' knee in a brutal backstage ambush just 2 weeks ago. The purpose? Humiliation. To strip Seth of his pride and his power. But now, with Seth unconscious and Roman Reigns back in the fold, Heyman's bravado has gone dark. There are no quips. No cryptic tweets. No smug interviews. Instead, silence. Some believe he's buying time. Others believe he's preparing for the inevitable, the wrath of the tribal chief, because make no mistake, Roman's presence at that hospital wasn't just about reconciliation. It was about territory. And if Paul Heyman thought for a second that the absence of Seth Rollins would leave a vacuum, he was right. Only it won't be filled by Bronson Reed, it will be filled by Roman Reigns. Those close to the situation say Roman hasn't yet spoken to TripleH. He hasn't made any announcements. But internally, WWE officials are bracing for his return. The man who vanished for nearly 4 months has been ignited by something more powerful than gold or glory. He's been ignited by grief, and grief makes people dangerous. This version of Roman, quiet, watchful, grieving, may be more volatile than ever before. Sources inside WWE Creative say that a pitch has already been made to pivot SummerSlam around a new narrative: Roman Reigns versus Paul Heyman's faction. Not for a title. Not for legacy. But for vengeance. And at the heart of that pitch is Seth Rollins, because while Seth may be down, his name has never mattered more. His absence has left a vacuum not just in the main event scene, but in the emotional core of WWE storytelling. Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, once brothers, now estranged, are being pulled together again by something no script could manufacture. Reality. In the past, their stories were written by others. Now, they're writing their own, and backstage, everyone feels it. The locker room is shaken. Young superstars walk quieter. Trainers move slower. There's a tension in the air, like everyone is waiting for something big to break. And no one, not even the veterans, know what Roman will do next, because when the tribal chief stands next to a fallen brother, hands shaking, eyes red, and says nothing, that silence becomes a threat. One producer described Roman's energy as volcanic. Another said, he's not the same guy. Whatever he saw in that hospital room, it changed him. There are rumors, unconfirmed, but persistent, that Roman has personally demanded a closed-door meeting with TripleH and Shawn Michaels. That meeting, according to sources, may determine not just the SummerSlam card, but the next year of WWE storytelling, and if Roman Reigns truly returns to reclaim his place, not as a manipulator, not as a villain, but as a man on a mission, it could reshape everything we thought we knew about the Bloodline saga. But beneath the politics and speculation, there's something more human happening here. Wrestling is performance, but pain? Pain is real, and what Seth Rollins has endured, physically, emotionally, is a testament to just how far a man will go for the thing he loves. He fought until his body gave out, he smiled until his face could no longer hide the agony, he led until his legs buckled beneath him, and now, he rests. Somewhere behind those hospital doors, hooked up to machines and sedated into silence, lies the man who gave us Match of the Year classics, who stood toe-to-toe with legends, who rebuilt WWE's faith after every exit and every betrayal. Seth Rollins didn't just carry the flag. He was the flag, and Roman Reigns knows that. That's why he's not leaving, not yet, because even though Roman has worn gold, held titles, and ruled over brands, he's never forgotten what it meant to believe in someone who once stood beside him through it all. This isn't a storyline, this is a scar. A memory. A reckoning, and when Seth Rollins wakes up, the world will be watching. Because the future of WWE may not rest on a match, a belt, or a stipulation. It may rest on a single moment, a reunion. A return. A reckoning between two broken brothers who never stopped being brothers, and if that moment comes, it could shake the wrestling world to its core. Some moments aren't meant to be seen by the public. But in the age of surveillance, everything leaks. Early this morning, a blurry, grainy clip surfaced online, less than 10 seconds long. No audio. No context. But enough to send WWE fans into a collective gasp. The video showed Roman Reigns standing in Seth Rollins' hospital room. No security. No entourage. Just Roman, head bowed, shoulders slumped, as he placed something on Seth's bedside table before walking out. Zoom in, and you see what he left behind. A single black wristband, the same one they wore during their early days in the Shield. A quiet symbol of brotherhood, legacy, and war. No words were spoken in the clip. But none were needed. The gesture said it all. Roman Reigns wasn't just visiting an injured colleague. He was saying something deeper, something sacred. I'm still here. I still remembered. I haven't forgotten what we were. By midday, the clip had been viewed over 5 million times. Fans dissected every frame. Some called it Roman's silent promo. Others claimed it was a funeral rite. The end of the brotherhood. But among WWE insiders, the reaction was different. They weren't focused on the wristband, they were focused on Roman's face. One producer described his expression as detached, calm, and terrifying. Another said, that wasn't grief. That was focus. That man has made a decision. And that's when the messages started flying backstage. One superstar shared a screenshot of a private locker room group chat. The message read, if Roman's back, we better be ready. This isn't going to be business as usual. Another comment followed, he's not back for titles. He's back for blood. The roster knows something's coming. They can feel it. And it's more than just Roman's return. It's the shift in atmosphere, the sense that this isn't a comeback. It's a countdown. A slow, methodical unraveling of whatever Paul Heyman built while Roman was away, and at the center of that unraveling is the hospital bed no one can look away from. Sources say that Seth has shown slight responsiveness. Finger twitches. Eyelid flutters. But he hasn't regained consciousness. Doctors remain cautiously optimistic. His vitals are stable. His brain activity shows promise. But no one is rushing predictions, because this isn't just about healing a body, it's about healing a history, a legacy torn in two. Roman hasn't spoken since the wristband clip leaked. Becky Lynch has remained behind hospital walls. TripleH is reportedly working from a secure office in Connecticut, reviewing all active creative angles and readying emergency rewrites. But the one voice no one expected to hear finally cracked the silence. Dean Ambrose. Or as he's now known to the world, John Moxley. In a rare move, Moxley posted a single line on his social media late this evening: "Don't forget what made you." No tag. No context. Just a statement, but fans and insiders immediately recognized the subtext. The Shield wasn't just a faction. It was a brotherhood forged in chaos, betrayal, war, and survival. Moxley left. Roman rose. Seth stood in between, bridging both sides until he broke, and now, with one man unconscious, the other two seem to be moving. The question is, toward what? Back inside the hospital, tensions remain high. Security has increased. Unauthorized visitors are turned away immediately. WWE has assigned legal representatives to monitor leaks. Every hour, new rumors swirl. Seth has woken up. Seth has whispered Roman's name. Seth is retiring, but none of these are confirmed. What we do know is that WWE cameras have been pulled from all SummerSlam documentary shoots. The crew assigned to film behind-the-scenes segments has been quietly reassigned. Why? Because the story is no longer being crafted. It's writing itself, and it's raw, unpredictable, dangerous. Back in Stamford, creative teams are reportedly drafting two separate paths, one where Seth Rollins returns, and one where he never wrestles again. Each path has Roman Reigns at its center. Each path leads to SummerSlam becoming more than an event. It becomes a memorial. To pain. To loyalty. To what happens when you give everything to the ring, and the ring takes everything in return. Paul Heyman, meanwhile, has not appeared on WWE television since the collapse. He was last seen leaving the Raw arena through a side exit, speaking on the phone with a Tone 1 insider called uncharacteristically shaken. Some believe he knows what's coming, that Roman, fueled by pain and guilt, is planning to dismantle Heyman's faction from the inside quietly. One man at a time. And if that's true, then Bronson Reed should be very, very afraid, because it was Bronson who delivered the final blow, the backstage assault that weakened Seth's knee to its breaking point. The attack sanctioned by Heyman. The humiliation that drove Rollins to mask his agony with painkillers, and Roman Reigns never forgets. Never. Behind closed doors, there are whispers that Roman has already requested a singles match with Reed, not on TV, not for storyline, but live, dark, and off-camera. A message. WWE has neither confirmed nor denied this, but the tension inside the locker room is growing. One writer described it perfectly: "It feels like the air before a thunderstorm. Everything is too quiet. Everyone's too polite. And Roman hasn't smiled once. If Seth Rollins wakes up, the entire world changes. If he doesn't, the world changes even more. This isn't about championships anymore. It's about closure, redemption, and revenge, because when you build a career on resilience, when you spend your life carrying others, when you become the man everyone counts on, there's always a price, and Seth Rollins just paid it. In full. We're not watching a storyline anymore. We're watching grief wear wrestling gear, and Roman Reigns, silent, watchful, grieving, is about to decide what happens next. To Heyman. To SummerSlam. To everything, because sometimes, the most dangerous man in the room isn't the one yelling. It's the one whispering, and right now, Roman Reigns isn't speaking at all. He's listening, waiting, and when he finally moves, it won't be scripted. It will be real. And it will be unforgettable. It happened quietly. No camera crews. No dramatic music. No pyro, just a slow inhale, then a flicker of movement beneath closed eyelids. Seth Rollins had opened his eyes the moment he regained consciousness. The hospital lights seemed too bright, the machines too loud. His mouth was dry. His thoughts came in fragments. Pain, confusion, disorientation, and then, faces. Becky Lynch was the first to move. Her hand flew to her mouth, tears spilling over before she could even form a word. Roman Reigns didn't speak. He didn't need to. He simply stood up, stepped back, and let Becky rush to Seth's side. A nurse quietly exited the room, giving the family space. And for a few minutes, the three of them, each broken in different ways, sat in silence, the gravity of the moment pressing down like a weight none of them could fully lift. Doctors say Seth's recovery is far from guaranteed. His nervous system was under intense stress. The combination of physical trauma, medication interaction, and sheer exhaustion had pushed his body to the brink, but he's awake and he's aware. And when he saw Roman standing in the corner of the room, eyes red, fists clenched, something in Seth's face broke. Not physically, but emotionally, because in that moment, everything they'd been through came rushing back: the Shield, the betrayals, the WrestleMania fights, the unspoken apologies, the years of silence, and now, this. "I thought you hated me," Seth whispered, his voice cracked and dry. Roman shook his head. "Not enough to let you die." That was the only thing either of them said for the next hour. Becky clutched Seth's hand. Roman sat by the window, staring at the horizon. The California sun dipped low, casting the hospital room in gold. A moment suspended between past and future, between forgiveness and reckoning. But outside that room, WWE was still spinning. Paul Heyman had finally broken his silence. In an unannounced backstage appearance filmed off-air after Raw, Heyman addressed the locker room, not as a character, not as a manager, but as the real man behind the curtain. "Don't blame me," he said, eyes locked on the room. "This industry devours everyone. I didn't make Seth take the risk. I didn't tell him to lie about his pain. He did that himself." The room was dead silent. Heyman continued, "You want a villain? Fine. But know this, when the bell rings, no one's your friend. Not me. Not Roman. Not Seth. In this business, the ring is church. And pain is the price of admission." He turned and walked out before anyone could speak, but behind him, the looks on the faces of the wrestlers said everything. He had crossed a line. Roman, upon hearing about Heyman's speech, reportedly requested access to the Raw arena next Monday, unannounced, unbooked, and off the record. Triple H has not confirmed whether that request will be honored, but if it is, the confrontation between Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman may become one of the most volatile moments in modern WWE history, because this isn't just about Seth Rollins anymore. It's about everything: the betrayal, the manipulation, the years Roman spent defending a faction that may have been built on lies, and Heyman, ever the opportunist, may have finally overplayed his hand. Back in the hospital, Seth asked a single question: "Did the fans know?" Becky paused. Roman glanced at her. Neither wanted to answer. Finally, Becky nodded. "They know now." Seth turned his face toward the ceiling. He didn't cry. He didn't flinch. He simply whispered, "Then it's over." But Roman stepped forward. "No," he said, voice low and steady. "It's not over. Not yet." And in that instant, something changed, because even lying in a hospital bed, Seth Rollins was still Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns, whether he admits it or not, is still fighting for his brothers. WWE fans don't know what to expect at SummerSlam anymore. The card is in shambles. The main event is uncertain. The status of titles, factions, and futures are all in flux, but what they do know, what everyone feels in their gut, is that something massive is coming. Roman Reigns didn't return for applause, he returned for retribution, and Paul Heyman may have just awoken a version of Roman that no one, not even the bloodline, can control, because when a man watches his brother nearly die, when he hears machines keeping him alive, when he sees the scars left behind by betrayal and silence, he doesn't just seek justice. He seeks vengeance, and Roman Reigns is just getting started. It wasn't on the schedule. There were no promos, no music, no tribal banners lighting up the Titantron, but as the opening bell rang on Monday Night Raw, the camera abruptly cut to black, and when the feed returned, the arena fell into silence. Roman Reigns had arrived. No pyro. No Paul Heyman. No mic. Just the sound of the crowd gasping, and then rising to their feet like a wave of electricity rolling through every seat. The tribal chief was back, but something about him was different. Gone was the smug confidence, the championship swagger, the icy dominance fans had grown accustomed to over the past 3 years. This Roman Reigns was cold. Focused. Boiling just beneath the surface. He wasn't dressed for a match. He wasn't here to entertain. He was dressed in all black, hoodie up, fists taped, and in his hand was the wristband, the one he left on Seth Rollins' hospital bedside. He walked down the ramp slowly, methodically, ignoring the cameras, the chants, the storm of confusion from commentators who had no idea this appearance was happening. Then he stopped at the ring steps and looked up. The fans knew something was coming. Roman stepped into the ring. The lights dimmed. And for a full 60 seconds, he just stood there. No one moved. Then, the lights cut completely, and when they came back on, Paul Heyman was in the ring. No music. No announcement. Just fear. He looked startled. Caught off guard. And for once in his life, Paul Heyman had nothing to say. Roman didn't blink. He slowly turned his head and stared at the man who once called him the head of the table. And then he stepped forward. Heyman instinctively backed up, clutching his tie like a noose tightening around his own throat. Roman, he said, his voice shaking, I didn't, but Roman cut him off. He raised the wristband. This, Roman said, his voice barely above a whisper, is loyalty. Heyman said nothing. Roman took another step forward. This, he continued, is family. Heyman's hands trembled. And you, Roman's eyes narrowed. You sold that out. The crowd